I hope you're excited. I know that we are. You're watching Vote 2024 election preview. I'm Stephania Jimenez. I know it's a super exciting time. We have 11 days to go before the election, and so many of you have so many decisions to make, and that's exactly why we're here today. Something else that's happening right now is that both presidential candidates, the Republican nominee Donald Trump, along with the Democratic nominee Kamala Harris, in Texas right now, they're holding events, campaigning with the people who are also campaigning to be your next senator here in Texas. Let's go first to Donald Trump, who headlined an event in Austin. He spoke about 1 o'clock today. Also, Ted Cruz was also there, and you see him behind him. You see a sign that says "Deport Illegals Now" and "Migrant Crime." Obviously, a big centerpiece of the Republican nominee's race has been about immigration and border security, and he is definitely beating that message loudly here in the Lone Star State. So that's happening there right now, and we know that after this, he's expected to do a podcast with Joe Rogan, who is also set up in Austin. Now, this isn't the only event that we're watching in Texas today, because on the other side, we have Kamala Harris that's expected to be in Houston at about 3 p.m. to speak with also Colin Allred, and they're going to have major celebrity star power behind them. Beyonce is going to be there along with Willie Nelson. So we are watching that right now because that's going to be happening at around 3 p.m. So watch out for that live stream because we're going to bring that to you live on our website. It's really rare at this point in the campaign, 11 days before the election, to have both presidential candidates here in Texas. Why is that? Because this is a reliably red state. So they think automatically, the assumption is that the vote is already locked up for the Republican ticket. But maybe this suggests that the Democratic and Republican parties don't think that that's the case. We know that I did see one poll a few days ago where Colin Allred polled just 1 point ahead of Ted Cruz. But let's keep in mind that we've seen many things like this before in the past, but the last time that a Democratic candidate won any statewide election in Texas was back in 1994. So who knows? Maybe the year is 2024 for the Democrats in Texas, maybe not. Okay, so we're going to be keeping things in order so that you feel ready. If you've already registered to vote in Texas, you do have a few options. One, you could wait until Election Day, that's November 5th, to vote. 2, and this is only for some of you, you can apply for a mail-in ballot. You have to download the application, print it out, sign it, and then mail it into the Bexar County Elections Department if you're a Bexar County voter by today. It's got to be postmarked with today, and then you have to make sure that that ballot, once you get it, is sent in to the Bexar County Elections Office and they receive it by Election Day. Your third option, my friends, is to vote early, and boy, have many of you shown up for that. If we can bring up the numbers, because these have been record numbers. The numbers that you're looking at right here are from Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. The total, 191,362 people in Bexar County have already cast their ballots. But when you look at the left there, the numbers from yesterday, that's the vote total, the number of people who went to vote yesterday, for more than 48,000 voters. This is the highest day we've ever had for early voting in a single day. So let's see if that number keeps going. By the way, you can continue to vote this weekend. If you haven't had a chance to vote early yet, you can do it this weekend. The early voting period goes until November 1st. All right. So many of you know who you're voting for at the top of the ticket, and we spoke about a lot of this during our series, Your Vote South Texas. We visited different parts of our region. If we can show that part where we show the different parts where we've been, Uvalde, Pleasanton, Bernie, Kerrville, New Braunfels, Seguin, really to get an accurate picture of how people feel about this election. That's a look at that. But really, this election is about issues. For some of you, it's about immigration. For others, it's about the economy. Let's listen to what many of you told us when we sat down with you.
I've always believed that women should have, the right to choose for themselves,
Honestly, the economy is probably the toughest, but people have to learn to live within their means. You don't have to have the biggest house, the fanciest car. Worry about putting food on the table and doing, it's hard. I raised 3 boys.
say the biggest thing, especially being in real estate, is going to be affordability with homes. I know that's scared a lot of people.
Who's going to really look out for my kids' future? Obviously, my future being a millennial is a little scary with, with all the debt and everything we've got going on for us. I feel like we've kind of been in a struggle boat versus our parents.
When inflation goes up, you got to wonder if people are going to want to be able to, can they even go out because cost of groceries is going up. So what is that going to look like? How are we going to deal with those things?
You can't get anybody to work anymore. Yeah, I can't find any help. I've been a plumber my whole life. You can't hire anybody. Nobody wants to do that kind of work anymore. So it's cutting all the little people out.
For my grandkids, I worry about a war and having them to get involved. That's the thing that worries me.
My most concern is the border.
Okay, what about it specifically?
I live in an area where I have them coming up my lane and in my yard.
Has that happened before?
Yes, it has, several times.
America's economy, it's really a business, and Donald Trump can run a business well, so he can run an economy well. Securing the border wise, if the border's not secure, more illegals come in and then they'll take jobs, so that takes jobs away from our economy, and that makes people have to work for less.
There you have it in your own words. These are some of the issues that have been inspiring you to go out and vote. Now we want to move on to the Senate race. Obviously, one of the key races that we're going to be watching on Election Day. It's been a tight race. We told you before, between Ted Cruz and Democrat Colin Allred. The two had their first and only debate last week. They argued over the border strategy, immigration, Israel, the economy, and abortion. And I want you to listen to the final pitch that they made to voters.
What's one thing you say that the biggest difference of why they should vote for Ted Cruz?
Look, I'll give you 3 words. Keep Texas, Texas. That's the whole theme of our campaign. We've had for more than a decade, over 1,000 people a day have moved to Texas. There are a lot of reasons they move, but the number one reason is Texas is where the jobs are. And they're fleeing from blue states like California, New York, New Jersey, Illinois. Colin Allred is campaigning as a Nancy Pelosi California liberal.
And I've been the most bipartisan Texan in Congress, and I want to bring us together around our shared values in the Senate. I want to actually get things done as opposed to just attacking people and never being a part of any solutions the way I've seen Senator Cruz be. And I think we're ready for this. And I also think that fundamentally, we've had some really horrific things happening in our state, particularly around taking away a woman's right to choose, that we have to restore some of these fundamental rights.
Okay, you saw a familiar face right there. My partner, Steve Spriester, speaking to both candidates. He was the only anchor in San Antonio to be able to sit down with both of the candidates before the race during Spriester sessions. By the way, we have a link to both of those interviews so you can really hear the candidates make their cases for their own candidacies right before the election. So that was their final pitch to voters, and now we want to go to 2 of the most competitive races for U.S. Congress. First, we're going to start with this one right here. That is Congressional District 15. That district covers 7 counties from Hidalgo to Guadalupe. You have Republican incumbent Monica de la Cruz versus Michelle Vallejo, the Democrat. And voters in this district, District 15, might be feeling a little bit of deja vu because this is a rematch from 2022 when the same candidates were also on the ballot. And this is a competitive race, folks, because 2 years ago, De La Cruz won that race by 8 percentage points, which is the closest margin for any congressional race in Texas that year. So the Democrats feel that Vallejo has a shot to turn the normally blue district, which went red in the last election, back to blue. Okay, so then we have Congressional District 28 that you've been hearing a lot about this race too, especially on the airwaves. We have incumbent Henry Cuellar versus Jay Furman. We know that Cuellar has represented that area from Laredo, that goes from Laredo all the way up to downtown San Antonio since 2005. But he's vulnerable because of all the legal issues that he's had. He's been indicted on bribery and money laundering charges in May, and his trial is set to begin in March. And he says, Cuellar, that he's one of the most bipartisan members of Congress. He sits on the House Appropriations Committee. This is one of the most powerful committees that we have in the House because they basically control the purse strings of the federal government. And then you have Furman. He's a Navy veteran and says that he's running because of border issues and inflation. So now we go to our next race. This is District 118. You have, this is expected to be one of the most state watched state House races in Texas this year. You have Republican John Lujan versus Democrat Cristian Carranza, and they disagree on two main issues: school vouchers and abortion. We know that Carranza staunchly opposes private school vouchers, saying that that program would drain funding for public schools, including teacher pay. Lujan, on the other hand, says that he wants public schools fully funded, but he also voted in favor of school vouchers during the last legislature. He says that he wouldn't vote for a school voucher plan in the future if it does not include better accountability for private schools. The other hot button issue here is the right to choose, abortion. Lujan has stated flat out that he's against abortion, whereas Carranza supports abortion rights and the woman's right to choose. All right, then we have House District 121. A lot of the drama with this race really happened before, during the primaries. This is, we have San Antonio criminal defense attorney Mark LaHood versus Democrat Laurel Jordan Swift. LaHood beat the three-term incumbent Steve Allison this spring, and that's because one of the reasons why is because Governor Greg Abbott threw his support behind LaHood because Allison, although a Republican, was against the governor's voucher-like program. Now, Swift, the Democrat, is getting support from Steve Allison. She's getting support from the guy who used to have that seat before, who's in the opposite party, as she's also against voucher programs, and she's made public education a centerpiece of her campaign. So now we're getting closer and closer to San Antonio. Let's get to Precinct 1. This is the Bexar County Commissioner's race. The incumbent is Rebecca Clay Flores, a Democrat, and then we have Republican Lina Prado, who is trying to take her seat. One of the main issues here that Prado mentioned is tackling the Commissioner's Court $2.5 billion debt. Prado also says that Bexar County should be tackling the issue of homelessness by voting with or working with nonprofits to make sure that people who are unhoused get help with mental health issues, drug abuse, and their finances. And then we have the incumbent, Clay Flores. Her issue, she says, is making sure that taxpayer money on things like housing, healthcare, infrastructure, public safety is spread evenly throughout the county. She says that the southern part of our county has been left out, and she also wants to add more resources to the northwest part of the county, which has seen a lot of growth. And then right here, we have the Precinct 3 race in the Bexar County Commissioner's Court. Republican Grant Moody versus Democrat Susan Corbell. We know that Moody wants to keep his seat. He wants to focus on things like public safety and the debt that the county is facing, while also keeping taxes low. Corbell wants to plan for growth and infrastructure. She says that she supports affordable housing, transportation, water supply, and reliable electricity. And she says she also wants to focus more on public safety to reduce gun violence. By the way, right now, Moody is the only Republican on the Commissioner's Court. Finally, this is something that really has ruffled a lot of feathers here in San Antonio, and this is Props C and E. So let's start with Prop C. These are the charter amendments that San Antonio voters are going to be considering. Let's start with C. If you vote yes, you'd basically be giving City Council the authority to determine how much the city manager is going to be paid and how long that person is going to be in that position. The reason why this is so controversial is because something like this already came up for a vote back in 2018. Voters basically approved capping the city manager's salary for only 10 times what the lowest paid employee in the city is able to make. As it stands, the city manager can also only serve 8 years in that role. So voting yes with this would mean that you would change that. You would give City Council the right to change the rules that you, the voters, set 6 years ago. Now let's move over to Proposition E. This also has to do with money. It has to do with the compensation for city council members and the mayor. If you vote yes on this, you would agree to raise city council salaries from $45,000 to $70,000 and the mayor's salary from $61,000 to $87,000. All of these issues and races that we've told you about are going to be covered more in depth on election night. We have reporters throughout the region assigned to cover these races for you to make sure that we have that. We also have a power panel that's going to be on us. So if you notice that I was speaking from a different place, we're speaking from the podcast room here. So I'm going to be here, and then just a few feet away from me outside of this studio, you're going to have Myra Arthur and Steve Spriester speaking to the people that you see here on your screen. Going to be our power panels. These are people who are really going to put the race into context. And so we're excited about that. Mark your calendars because this is going to be taking place Tuesday, November 5th. So basically you vote, and then you come home and we start live streaming here at 6:30 p.m. And we're going to continue this live stream from 6:30 p.m. all the way through 10 o'clock. And then we're going to see you on the Night Beat. Thank you so much for joining us for this election preview. We also want you to stay online because I told you before about the event that Kamala Harris is going to be having in Houston. That's going to be starting at around 3 o'clock, and we're also going to be live streaming it for you on our website. For now, happy voting, and we'll see you tonight.